She's just after the money, Sophia shouted, standing at the head of the table. Look at these bank statements. While we were mourning Dad's death, she was secretly taking money from the family accounts. I sat quietly, watching her dramatic performance. She waved the papers, paused for effect, and glanced at the others. It was all carefully planned. My name is Alexandra, and at that moment my family was turning against me. Is this true, Alex? My mother-in-law, Margaret, asked, her voice shaking. She clutched her pearls, a nervous habit since Dad passed 3 months ago. Did you really do this? I met her eyes. No, I said. I didn't. But Sophia wasn't done. She threw more papers on the table. Then explained these. Transfers, withdrawals, while you were handling Dad's estate. My brother James wouldn't even look at me. He just stared at his hands, like when we were kids and Sophia blamed me for things she did. Some things never change. The paperwork is real, I said calmly. Everything was approved by the estate lawyer. Sophia laughed coldly. The lawyer you chose? How convenient. I felt the room shift. Aunt Helen, who once invited me for Sunday dinners, now looked away. Cousin Peter, whom I helped with college applications, wouldn't meet my gaze. Even my husband, Michael, sat silently, unsure. I think it's best if you leave, Alexandra, Margaret said hesitantly. Leave? For what? I asked, though I already knew. This was Sophia's plan all along. Until we figure this out, Sophia snapped. The missing money, the way you tricked Dad. I stood up, grabbing my bag. You're making a mistake, I said softly. Grief makes people easy to manipulate. I looked straight at Sophia. Her face twitched for a second. Get out, she hissed, and don't come back until you return every cent. As I reached the door, Michael finally spoke. Alex, wait. But Sophia cut him off. Let her go. She's been using you too. I turned one last time. When you're ready for the truth, you know where to find me. Driving home, everything felt unreal. 3 months ago, we were a close family. Now, thanks to Sophia, I was the villain. But she didn't know the full story. I'd been watching her too. I had seen things that didn't add up. Dad had noticed them too. That's why he asked me to handle the estate. Stay sharp, Alexandra, he had told me. Things aren't always what they seem. Pulling into my driveway, I already had a plan. Sophia thought she had one. She thought I'd just accept this. She was wrong. I unlocked my door, ignoring the flood of angry messages from my family. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulling up the file I'd been building for 6 months. Game on, Sophia, I whispered. What happened next would change everything. Because while she played her game, she didn't realize I was about to uncover something that would reveal her lies once and for all. And I knew exactly where to look. The next morning, I drove to Dad's house early, using the key he'd given me before he passed. The family wouldn't be here. They always slept late after their dramatic meetings, something I counted on. The house was quiet, morning light streaming through the windows as I made my way to his study. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. The leather chair still held the indent from where he'd spent countless hours, his reading glasses still perched on the corner of the desk. But I wasn't here for memories. I was here for answers. Dad had been meticulous about his records, organizing everything with a system only he fully understood. Or so everyone thought. We'd spent months before his death going through files together, and he taught me his methods, showing me how each folder connected to another, creating a web of information that told the real story of our family's finances. I started with the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, the one Sophia never bothered to check because it only contained old tax records. But Dad had taught me better. Behind those tax records was a false back, and behind that, found you, I whispered, pulling out a thin red notebook. The notebook contained Dad's private observations, things he'd noticed but never confronted directly. As I flipped through the pages, his familiar handwriting painted a very different picture than the one Sophia had presented. March 15th. Notice unusual transfers from the family trust. Sophia's signature doesn't match previous documents. Need to verify. April 3rd. James seems unaware of the new account opened in his name. Sophia handling all financial matters now. Concerning. May 1st. Alexandra's audit revealed systematic discrepancies. Keep this quiet for now. Building evidence. My hands were shaking as I read. Dad hadn't just suspected, he'd known. He'd been tracking Sophia's activities for months, maybe years. But why hadn't he confronted her? The answer came on the last page, dated just a week before his death. Hidden the final evidence in the place only Alexandra knows to look. She'll understand when the time comes. The blue box holds the truth. The blue box. My heart skipped a beat. When I was 12, Dad had shown me his secret hiding spot, a hidden compartment behind the study's fireplace mantel. Every good man needs a place to keep his secrets, he told me with a wink. This is where I keep the things that really matter. I moved to the fireplace, my fingers finding the hidden catch exactly where I remembered it. With a soft click, the panel popped open. Inside was a small blue box, dusty but intact. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were USB drives, documents, and a sealed letter addressed to me. But what caught my eye was a stack of bank statements, the real ones, not the doctored versions Sophia had presented. They told a very different story. The transfers she'd accused me of making, they all traced back to accounts she controlled. The suspicious withdrawals, they coincided perfectly with her recent luxury purchases, a new car, expensive jewelry, that surprise vacation she'd taken James on. But it was the letter that made my breath catch. My dear Alexandra, if you're reading this, then things have played out as I feared they might. Sophia has shown her true colors, and the family, in their grief, has likely believed her. They always did prefer a dramatic performance to quiet truth. I'm entrusting you with this evidence because you were the only one who saw through her act from the beginning. The USB drives contain security footage from my study. Yes, I had cameras installed after the first time I caught her forging my signature. The documents prove where the money really went. But most importantly, I've included my new will, the real one, not the version Sophia thinks she found. She's been playing a dangerous game, Alexandra, and it's time for the truth to come out. Use this wisely. The family will resist at first. Truth is always harder to accept than lies. But they need to know who really had their best interests at heart. I trust you to do what's right. Love, Dad. I sat back in his chair, the weight of everything settling over me. Dad hadn't just left me evidence, he'd left me a responsibility. He trusted me to expose the truth, to protect the family from someone who'd been systematically deceiving them. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Can we talk? I looked at the evidence spread before me, then typed my reply. Yes. Bring everyone to Dad's house tomorrow at 2. It's time for the real family meeting. I gathered everything carefully, making copies of the key documents. Sophia had spent years building her deception, turning the family against me piece by piece. Tomorrow, that carefully constructed house of cards would come crashing down. As I locked up the study, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different somehow, stronger, more determined. Dad had trusted me with his secrets, and I wouldn't let him down. Tomorrow would change everything. But first, I had some preparing to do. At precisely 2 p.m. the next day, they all filed into Dad's study. Margaret, James, Michael, Aunt Helen, Cousin Peter, and finally Sophia, wearing an expression of manufactured concern. I stood behind Dad's desk, feeling his presence in every corner of the room. What's this about, Alexandra? Sophia asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Haven't you caused enough pain? I smiled, remembering Dad's words about preferring dramatic performances. Actually, Sophia, I think it's time we discussed your performance from yesterday. Before she could respond, I connected one of the USB drives to Dad's computer, turning the screen so everyone could see. Security footage began playing, showing Sophia sneaking into the study late at night, forging signatures, replacing documents. What is this? Margaret whispered, her hand dropping from her pearls. This, I said calmly, is what really happened in Dad's final months. I spread out the real bank statements, the documented evidence of Sophia's transfers, the traced records of her purchases. While you were all grieving, while you were trusting Sophia's version of events, Dad was building a case. James stepped closer to the screen, his face pale. Sophia, what did you do? She laughed nervously. This is obviously fake. She's trying to frame me. I pulled out Dad's letter, still sealed. Margaret, would you like to read Dad's letter? I think you'll recognize his handwriting and his signature. As Margaret read aloud, Sophia's facade began to crack. The family listened in stunned silence as Dad's words exposed everything. The systematic theft, the manipulation, the careful groundwork Sophia had laid to blame me when the time came. It's not true, Sophia said weakly. but even she didn't seem to believe it anymore. "The real will is in that blue box," I said quietly. Along with every piece of evidence Dad collected, he knew Sophia. He knew everything. The room erupted in chaos. James stumbled backward, looking at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Aunt Helen was crying. Cousin Peter was furiously scrolling through the financial records on his tablet. Michael moved to stand beside me, taking my hand. "I'm so sorry I doubted you," he whispered. But I was watching Sophia. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and she knew it. She turned to run, but found Aunt Helen blocking the doorway. "Going somewhere?" Aunt Helen asked, her voice hard. "I think you owe us all some answers." The next few hours were intense. The family lawyer was called. Statements were made. Sophia's scheme had been larger than even I had imagined. She'd been siphoning money for years, playing family members against each other, building her own secret fortune at everyone's expense. By evening, she'd been asked to leave the house and the family. James, devastated by her betrayal, could barely look at her. The lawyer was already drafting papers to freeze her assets and begin recovery proceedings. As the dust settled, Margaret approached me, tears in her eyes. "Alexandra, can you ever forgive us? We should have known, should have trusted you like he did." I hugged her tightly. Dad used to say that family isn't about blind trust. It's about seeing the truth in people's actions, not just their words. Later that night, back in Dad's study, I sat in his chair one last time. The family had gathered in the living room, beginning a long process of healing and reconciliation. Michael brought me a cup of tea, sitting on the desk edge. "You know," he said softly, "your dad would be proud of how you handled this." I touched the letter, now framed and hanging on the wall. He trusted me to do the right thing. That's what family really means. Through the door, I could hear the murmur of voices, my family, coming back together, stronger for having faced the truth. Sophia had tried to tear us apart, but in the end, Dad's wisdom and trust had kept us whole. I picked up the blue box, now empty of its secrets but full of memories, ready to join the others. Michael asked, extending his hand. "Yes," I smiled, taking his hand. "It's time to be a family again." We walked out together, leaving the study exactly as Dad had kept it, a place where truth lived, where secrets were kept safe, and where, in the end, justice had prevailed. The family's healing would take time, but we would face it together, stronger for having weathered this storm. And somewhere, I knew, Dad was smiling, knowing his trust had not been misplaced.